Ether Mitchell is an award-winning poet, prolific author, and lyricist from Davison, Michigan. She has published two books of poetry, Art, Mind and Soul, and Facets of Life, as well as one modern romantic tragedy, Extend Flame. She has been a pre-primary educator for over 25 years, but literature is her greatest passion. Although Ether is visually impaired, she has never allowed this challenge to interfere with sources. She is proud to serve as an advocate and role model for the visually impaired community. Her personal motto is "A day without learning is a day wasted." Although Ita is visually impaired, she has persevered as an author. And on today's episode of Author Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today Ether Mitchell. How are you doing, Heather?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you on the show today. I'm quite excited.
As am I. I have been a writer for 35 years, and I
Interesting.
was published for the first time in 2004
Wow.
professionally. So I've really enjoyed being an author.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really much amazing. And now, before I go into my questions, I'd love to read a bit of synopsis of your book before asking you topics and questions about the book. So I'll be starting with Art, Mind, and Soul. So, the synopsis of the book says or goes like this. Poetry is a window directly into an author's art, mind, and soul. Journey vicariously through a writer's life in this unique volume on logically arranged autobiographical poetry. Experience the excitement, surrounding a great text triumph. Suffer through incredible mysteries and outtakes. Explore unbelievable profound romances. Watch a writing star develop from that of an angst-filled teenager into the introspective, complex thought of a woman who has faced innumerable trials. And now, Ether, I'd love to ask you, what inspired the making of Art, Mind, and Soul? How did this book come about? And I love to say I love the description of the It sounds amazing to me.
Well, I developed the title from the fact that I believe poetry is written from the heart.
Mm,
It is the mind that transfers emotions into words, and
mm,
the purpose of poetry is to touch the soul.
yeah.
Um, this book is actually intertwined with the backstory of how I became a writer, and I would like to share that if I may.
Yeah, sure.
So, when I was 12 years old, taking English classes, as all of us do, we started studying poetry, and I was immediately enamored with it. I
Mm,
couldn't read enough poetry. I was just fascinated, especially with Elizabethan poetry. And I
yeah.
actually read for and received the part of Juliet.
Oh,
Um, yeah. And so the English teacher challenged us each to write our own poem. And in so doing, I discovered a natural talent for it
mm,
and a natural love of it to read and write it. So not only did I begin writing poetry, but I also started a side venture.
wow,
I called myself the modern Cyrano de Bergerac, which
wow.
happens to be my favorite piece of literature, Edmond Rostand, Cyrano de Bergerac. I was actually writing love letters and poems on behalf of fellow students, and they would pay me to do that for them.
Interesting.
Yeah, and one day my English teacher caught me doing it, and I
Oh,
thought I was going to be punished. But instead, she sat down with me and she said, "You know, you are selling your art. You're actually very good. Have you ever thought about being an author?" And
wow.
so at that point, I started gathering together poems and putting them in order. And in fact, the very first poem in that book was the one that I wrote
Mm,
for that English assignment. And yes, it is very primitive, but I wanted the reader to understand where I came from, a place of primitive, simplistic, young person thoughts.
Mm,
This book goes from ages 12 to 26. So it
interesting.
carries on through young adulthood, challenges that I faced throughout life,
Mm,
things of that nature. So I grew as a writer. I became more complex of thought, deeper, more introspective. So I hope the reader will enjoy
yeah.
watching that journey.
Wow, that's quite amazing, really. I love the fact that you shared your story about this. Sounds quite cooling to me. And now you have another book titled Extend Flame, and I'll be reading a short synopsis of it before I ask my question about that too. Truly epic love counts but once upon a lifetime. No, in a millennium, transcending culture, space, even time. This non-fictional ultimate modern romantic tragedy explores an unusual relationship between a worldly Tivanix exchange student and a simple, hard-working, visually challenged pre-primary educator, whom is also an author. Journey vicariously along with star-crossed lovers, enjoy exhilarating courtship, experience flaming hot desire, feel the tingles of intense passion, shed sympathetic tears as to innocent souls savagely ripped apart by unforeseeable circumstances. Will they reunite? Read the sentimental novel for the entire story. The most unique thing about this book is that it is literally adapted from journal, love letters, and emails shared between these two lovers. And wow, I'd love to say that's such an amazing synopsis, really. And now I'd love to ask you, could you tell us a sneak about Extant Flame without giving much information away?
Well, as it said, it is a true story. I was 23 years old when I met
Wow.
Jeff. That was his American name. He
Hmm.
was a Taiwanese exchange student studying engineering here in the United States. And we met. We actually met online, which was not common back then.
Hmm.
Um, but from the minute we met in person, it was almost love at first sight. We were together night and day and night from that point forward.
Wow.
Um, the courtship was extremely whirlwind, romance, very passionate. We became engaged less than 4 months later, but then there was a tragedy. And if you want
Oh.
to know what the tragedy was, please pick up the book and read
Wow.
it. It is indeed adapted from my own personal journals.
Wow.
And I designed the cover. Um, the title, Eastern Flame, is indicative of that he is from the East and he was my flame, so Eastern
Wow.
Flame. And the
Wow.
flame on the front of the book represents the spark that began a romance.
Wow. Wow, this is quite amazing, really. And I even love the sound of Extend Flame. Even for mere reading the synopsis, sounds quite cooling to me. So thank you so much for sharing. And now I'll be going to your third book, which is titled Facets of Life. I would be reading a short synopsis of each two before asking my question. Facet of life. Life is but many splendid jewel, having countless facets, each representing an experience, thought, emotion, dream, desire. What better way to describe a finite moment in time than with a poem? This unique volume contains a variety of introspective and inspirational poetry, celebrating the human condition in its purest form. It discusses challenges faced during middle age, unforeseeable illnesses, relationship struggles, and more. It also includes some satirical, sarcastic piece providing levity. At this point, I'd love you to tell us a bit about what inspired you to write Facets of Life.
Well, the title is actually inspired by the fact that I love and collect jewelry and gemstones from all over the world.
Oh.
And I see life as a jewel in a way, and everyone's jewel is different.
Mm,
Some of the facets of our jewel are flashy and brilliant and easy to see, the external personality, and others are more hidden under the shadow of the gem. And there are memories and secret desires and inner thoughts that we can choose or choose not to share.
mm,
Um, this book begins at age 26 and carries on through 44. I am hoping to do a series of poetry books lasting throughout my lifetime.
mm,
Uh, at this point in my life, I am heavily inspired by the mythologies, Greek, Sumerian, Egyptian, and Norse, and you
mm,
will see a lot of metaphorical references there too in the book. And yes, it's kind of settles around the struggles of being middle-aged and the type of things that I have endured,
mm,
illnesses and relationship issues. And yeah, so I would think that if you are a lover of poetry, especially in your middle years, this book
mm.
would really appeal to you.
Wow, that's amazing, really. I love the sound of it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Would you like me to show the book covers on
Absolutely.
screen
Yeah,
so that
please do that. Yeah, that
this
would
is
be
the
great.
Heart, Mind, and Soul. And
Mm.
again, it's hearts and it's blue because my favorite color is blue. So
Oh,
the artist and I designed this together.
interesting.
And yeah, and then this one is the Facets of Life,
Life.
and it's covered in various gemstones um, to represent the many colors and cultures of the world.
Yeah.
And then again, this is Eastern Flame, and it has the one flame
Mm.
in the middle representing the spark of romance.
Wow.
So I hope that many of
Beautiful.
my readers, many of my fans will pick them up and
Yeah.
give them a read.
Beautiful covers, really. Thank you so much for showing them. Thank you. And now, apart from the books we've mentioned thus far, do you have any other works you've authored or maybe currently working on?
Yes, I do. I have three projects that I am currently working on. My next book of poetry is entitled Majestic Dragon.
Mm,
And I chose that title because I consider myself to be a bit of a dragon. If the world tells me no, I don't get angry. I prove it wrong. I'm
mm,
a very strong person, very
mm,
perseverant, and I refuse to give up. And I
mm,
encourage all the readers and listeners out there that if you have a dream, don't give up and don't let the world tell you no.
mm.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, and again, it picks up at age 44 and is moving forward from there. And I don't know exactly how long or how many years the book will cover, but um, hopefully at least 10 years, and then it will be published. The second project that I'm working on is a genre that I've never worked in before. I'm dabbling in science fiction. The book
Oh,
is called Happy Birthday. It takes place,
interesting.
in a post-apocalyptic world where there has been a nuclear holocaust.
Mm,
Everyone is living underground at this point, and the government, unfortunately, is in charge of every aspect of life. In fact, they track its citizens with calm crystals that everyone has implanted in their body, and it's not a choice. And they're
mm,
also in complete control of all breeding practices. The whole point of the book is to show the damage that eugenics can do or would do, potentially do to our society by eliminating differences, variances, disabilities, eliminating anything and everything, trying to
mm,
make all humanity the same. I am strongly against genetic engineering. I don't
mm.
believe in it. A lot of people have asked me in the past if genetics could repair your sight, would you
Wow.
become in favor of it. And I say, absolutely not,
Wow.
because I believe that the Lord put me here the way I am for a purpose. And my job is
Mm,
to be a strong role model for other young visually impaired people and to
wow.
educate the public about how positive and strong we really are.
Mm,
And
wow.
in that regard, I'm also working on um, trying to put together an anthology of works written exclusively by visually impaired authors. I'm
Wow.
currently looking for a sponsor to publish that.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing, really. That's really amazing. And I hope you find sponsors publish that. I like the fact that you mentioned that, if you have a dream, don't give up and don't let the world tell you no. That's such an amazing thing to say. So thank you so much for sharing. And now, Ether, I'd also love to ask you, is there anything that you would love to share with the viewers about your book or about your books that we did not mention in this interview? And I'd love the viewers to know.
I actually have a couple of short pieces that I have chosen I'd like to share
Yeah.
that I have written. They're not the most complicated, but for some reason, there are two of my favorites. So
Oh,
the first one is entitled Authorial.
oh,
I'm just another writer trapped within my youth, a lost and wayward spirit searching for unknown truth.
mm,
When the night is falling, I cry myself to sleep, hoping that my lover doesn't hear me weep.
mm,
When the sun is rising, I open up these eyes. Another day is dawning. I sadly realize, yes, I'm just a lonely writer, penning rhyme upon rhyme through dark and dreary hours,
mm.
passing silent time.
Wow. I love your recitation, really. Sounds quite cooling to me. Thank you so much for sharing.
And the other one is a love poem. It is entitled Longing.
Yeah, let's do that.
I just want to touch you. I need to feel you close to me. And without your loving arms to keep me warm tonight, I'll be so cold and lonely. Oh, you cannot deny. Nothing lasts forever now. But when I hold you close and kiss your lips, I'm comforted somehow. How I
Mm,
long to see you, look upon your handsome face, knowing now within this mauled and battered heart, none other could ever take your place. Return to me this night, quench my yearning soul, rekindle passion's burning fires, make me again feel whole.
wow. That's quite lovely, really. I love the poem. I love the love poem recitation. That's quite beautiful. And now I
Thank
want to shortly ask you, is there any challenges you've encountered, in the process of writing these books? If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
I think the biggest challenge that I face as an author is marketing. And I am still working to overcome this because your average author cannot afford a large campaign through a large advertising agency. And
Hmm.
so it is really hard to get, I mean, you can write the best book in the world, but if people don't know it exists, they're
Hmm.
not going to read it. So that is something that I could really benefit from advice on.
Wow. That's great, really. I love your take on that, and it's quite nice to know the challenges you've encountered along the line. And now, Ether, in case we have some interested viewers who are currently watching this interview, I would love to get a copy of your book. On what platform is it available on for purchase?
All of them are available on Amazon in electronic and paperback format. Also, any of your local bookstores can order a copy from the publisher upon request. And
Hmm.
Heart, Mind, and Soul was picked up by Audible, so it's also available on the Audible platform.
That's great. That's amazing. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Ita Mitchell's books directly on Amazon and other platforms as well. So thank you so much, Ether, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.